So everyone's like, oh, no. He's like, all right, sure. Welcome to another episode of Eat a Deck Tech. My name is Salvador Cortez. Today with me I have Jonathan Martinez. Thank you for coming with us, Jonathan.
Thanks for having me, man.
We also have a special guest host, Rafid.
Yeah.
So he'll be chiming in when he can. So, Jonathan, how long have you been on Bant Eldrazi's?
Since December.
And how have you enjoyed it so far?
I think it's one of the best fair decks out right now.
Fair decks? Okay.
And I just read an article saying that it's went downhill since a lot of unfair decks came into play now in the meta. But I still think it's super resilient and one of the best decks.
So I'm going to piggyback off that, right? That is something you're going to see a lot of people ask when they watch this video. In your opinion, right, through experience, through whatever, why should people play this version over, say, Eldrazi Tron that's been putting up a lot of results recently?
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of Eldratron, especially here in this shop and in other shops. But I think one of the big ones is the Displacer and Ancient Stirrings. So Ancient Stirrings just lets us kind of draw to what we want at that game. And I really like that, especially turn 1, turn 2, being able to set us up for like later game. And Displacer alone has been able to help me win games on its own.
So you're able to achieve a level of consistency people might not see with Eldrazi Tron, as well as a way to approach the game differently.
Yep, and you have access to a bunch of 3 colors for the sideboard. So
okay, mentioning Ancient Stirrings now. So it should be popping up on screen now. Ancient Stirrings helps you find I'm pretty sure it helps you find all your threats and helps you find your engineered explosives and some sideboard cards we'll get into in a minute. Would you like to walk us up with this build that you're currently running?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start off with the lands first.
Sure.
So lands, typical 4 Eldrazi Temples.
Right.
I have 3 Brushlands, 2 Yavimayas. I actually run 3 Windswepts and 1 Misty Rainforest. And that's because I have an island basic, but also because I like the Misty Rainforest artwork. Gotcha. I think the expedition is just I like the birds there. I have 1 Ghost Quarter, mainly for Tron, like you mentioned before. Cavern of Souls 3, and then the 3 Shocks and 3 basics.
So you mentioned Ghost Quarter against Tron decks and stuff like that. Cavern of Souls is pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know, who probably haven't ran the deck, why do people run the ping lands as opposed to like regular shocks like you do with the other variations?
So there are a bunch of colorless creatures. So I need the ping land, so I'm able to get color if I need color, or if I could get colorless, I get colorless.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
For those watching the video, if you notice, if you look at a lot of the important creatures, Thought-Knot Seer, Reality Smasher, Matter Reshaper, they specifically say, hey, we need a colorless mana. So not typically you'll see a number in that gray circle that means any mana will do, right? It's generic. These Eldrazi, the reason, sort of a downside to them is you have to have specifically colorless mana. You'll notice by the diamond symbol.
Yeah.
Okay, so now run us through some of your utility stuff here.
Yeah. So for EEs, I have 2 EEs, which is debatable at the moment with the meta between EE and Warping Well. I guess we could go more into that later. 4 Paths as for removal, 4 Ancient Stirrings. So that's just non-creature spells I have right now.
Correct.
Well, I also have Nissa. I want to talk about Nissa a little bit later.
Yeah, so let's touch on the Ancient Stirrings. So some people might not know this.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of your creatures are actually colorless.
Yeah.
So it helps you find those creatures.
So Ancient Stirrings, where you get to look at the top 5 and choose a colorless. So that includes lands as well.
Correct.
And since all of my creatures except nobles and birds have Devoid, which is they're colorless, I can find them with Ancient Stirrings.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah. So back to the creatures. So I have Matter Reshaper. I have 2 of 4 Displacers, 4 Eldrazi Skyspawners, 4 Thought-Knots, 3 Drowner of Hope, and 4 Reality Smashers. So those are my Eldrazi's. For the colored ones, I have 4 Nobles and 1 Birds.
So this essentially helps you ramp out your bigger stuff.
Yeah.
It helps set up like a turn 2 Nissa. Helps you find like all your like other utilities, and the benefit is obviously the Exalted trigger.
Yeah, so Exalted, I mean, being able to go 3-2 in the air rather than 2-1 in the air with Skyspawner, or swing 6, Trample Haste with Reality Smasher, I mean, it's a huge boost, especially if you have more than one Noble.
Oh man.
Yeah.
It just gets.
I've had games where I swung with Noble on its own, and it's a 3/4.
Ah, yeah.
So,
that's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Now, Matter Reshaper, what are your favorite things about that card?
That it replaces itself. So
Sure.
when it goes to the graveyard, you're able to flip the top card of your library, and if it's a converted mana cost 3 or less, then you can put it on the battlefield. And I have a permanent, by the way. I have Displacer, Skyspawner, I have Nobles, Birds, lands that you can put as well. And if you ever need a 0 EE, you can put a 0 EE on board as well.
And now if you don't reveal a permanent, it goes to your hand, which also is a replacement effect.
Right, exactly.
Which makes it great.
Yep.
Okay, so we have the majority of stuff here. Let's touch on the Nissa here.
Yeah.
You've been running her for about a good week or so.
Yeah.
She's a newer card from the newest set.
Yeah.
It's more. It was a flex slot. Now that you've played with it, what can you tell us about Nissa and like what she brings to this build for Bant Eldrazi?
Yeah. So first with Nissa, this has definitely been a flex spot. I've had Metamorph in that spot. I've had Dromoka's Command, Blessed Alliance. I've had a Johnny, the one where it adds a +1 counter, or give it's a +1, and its minus is give a creature flying and double strike.
Gotcha.
And then I've had the one where I gain life from it with the lifelink, vigilance, first strike. And I think Nissa has been the best one so far, mainly because, especially against non-burn decks, she is able to just be a huge distraction for the opponent. Being able to scry 2 as a +2 has been a huge help. It's like drawing more cards for me. I'm able to set up myself. Her 0, where I can put a creature, which I have a lot of, on the battlefield, as long as the X is its converted mana cost or less. And at 6 late game, -6, I can swing for 10 in the air. Like if I don't have a card and it's a top deck and I just need some damage, especially in the air where there's not a lot of flyers.
Correct.
Boom.
Yeah, like your own evasive creatures would be the Sky Spawners. So being able to get 2 5/5s is such a great payout.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna add on to that. A lot of people might not exactly know what's new about it. You'll notice the Nissa itself has an X in its cost, right? You pump the mana into it, that's how much loyalty it'll get when it lands on the board, right? So what's important is he's talking about it scales with Modern, right? Or how the matchup goes.
Like I was saying, in terms of turn 2, if I have 2 lands and Noble, I can play Nissa for 1 and then get her up to 3 with her +2 scry.
That's been working out for you.
It's been working out really good the past week.
And you're also running your 5 essentially Nobles just
exactly.
to get a consistency.
Yeah, and also Birds is helpful too in case whenever I have EE in my hand, I can cast it for 4 rather than 3 with just Noble.
That's right. Somebody picking up this deck, what are interactions that they might not see off the top that you'd like to highlight here?
Well, I know the big one is Displacer with Drowner late game. Being able to just keep displacing Drowner and having more Scions right here. And with Drowner's ability, is able to sack a Scion and tap down a creature. And that just gives you room to just go out and attack with your Eldrazi's. Another one is, especially with the Counters Company, where they're able to have infinite life. Another way you can win, even though they have infinite life, is just displacing Thought-Knot and just milling them out. So if you're able to get rid of their druids and the only out that they have is infinite life, you can mill them out with Thought-Knot. And that's also helpful against a mirror matchup if you both have worship out. Milling them out is a good thing you can have as well. Against Lancer control or anything with Ensnaring Bridge, Nobles and Birds help you out a lot because you can swing with them and they'll get pumped after the
due to the Exalted trigger.
Exactly. Let's see what else. I already talked about the Ancient Stirrings. You can find lands with it.
Let's get on to the big boys. So you mentioned one of the big guys here, Genre of Hope.
Yep.
Amazing card. Helps you tap out people's creatures, come in hard, fast, and they can't really do anything about it no matter how many creatures they have. Yeah. Now, let's go on. Cards that are actually currently still in Standard. They made such an impact. They created this deck, Bant Eldrazi's. Let's go on to Reality Smashers and Thought-Knot Seers.
Yeah.
What has made you love these cards to stick to this build?
A turn 2 Thought-Knot, turn 3 Smasher.
Oh,
like
that's
just
gross.
doing that alone is such a good feeling. Like getting rid of a card in their hand and then swinging for 9 turn 3. It's like It's really hard to stop that, especially with Smasher's ability, where if you target it with the instant sorcery, they have to discard or else it's countered.
Correct.
Like discard another card. It's a great ability.
So you're essentially like 2-for-1ing them if they want their paths to resolve or terminates and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, say for example, what I'd say about Thought-Knot Seer, some people might be comparing this to Tide Hollow Sculler. Similar effect. Enter the battlefield, take card from their hand. Here's the key component though, right? Thought-Knot Seer, you exile the card. It's gone, right? Never have to worry about it. Tide Hollow Sculler, if it dies, look at the card back. Depending on the card you choose, it can be problematic, it can't be, etc. Right? Now, Reality Smasher, right? That's a 5/5. What are some key like battles or creatures you just trample over, or creatures you trade with? Just interaction with Reality Smasher, you seem to notice a lot that people may or may not run into when they play the deck.
So in terms of like what creatures can it trample over, kind of thing.
Yeah, just what about Reality Smasher as a creature versus other creatures a lot of people might see in Modern helps put it over the top?
The ability that has haste and trample is one thing. So a lot of people I know in the recent article I read talked about Tarmogoyf beating Smasher at the moment because it's able to get like a 7/8, 6/7, 5/6. But the thing that Tarmogoyf doesn't have is trample.
Correct.
So you can chump block a Tarmogoyf, while with Smasher, whatever's left over will go over that creature. So I think the ability to have trample is really huge right now.
It just makes it a threat.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
If they're playing token decks, like I run a Goyf deck, so like if they have like many of tokens, they have 4 tokens. I'm hitting them turn 5.
Right.
Reality Smasher lets them get through. Then you don't have bad top decks with nobles because then you're just hitting for more.
Yep.
It seems it is a great blowout card, and the third ability, which is the discard we talked about, is just such a blowout.
Yeah.
We can move over here in the sideboard. You want to run us through with what you have in the sideboard and like what are the matchups they come in on?
Sure, yeah. So I have 2 Stony Silence, 1 Worship, 2 Stubborn Denials, 1 Natural State, 1 Dromoka's Command, 2 Kitchen Finks, 2 Blessed Alliance, 2 Rip, and 2 Grafdigger's Cage.
All right. So which are your sideboard cards that you usually find yourself bringing in on certain matchups? Like, what are decks you feel the need to sideboard the most for?
Yeah, so it depends at the shop I'm at.
Okay.
So like, especially here where I see Affinity and Junk a lot. So with Affinity, Stony Silence definitely comes in. And with Junk, I like to put Rest in Peace to make those Goyf's plants.
Yeah.
Burn decks, I like to put in Kitchen Finks and Dromoka's Command because it gets rid of their enchantment creature. So a lot of people don't know that. You can get rid of a creature and stop a burn spell from happening, or fight a goblin.
While simultaneously pumping up your creatures, presenting a threat.
Yeah, and Bless was really helpful when Infect was still a thing. Since that kind of died off, Bless has mainly helped in the mirror matchup, or it's actually helped me against Affinity as well. I kind of wait for them to like sack everything with Arcbound, and then I'll play it once they play everything on a counter or on a creature.
And just gain value off of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I noticed this beautiful card right here.
Oh, the Yu-Gi-Oh card?
Yeah, pretty much, right? Now, it's Worship, right? Very interesting card. Typically only seen in this deck, right?
Right.
So could you go into the card a bit, explain what it does for the viewers, and also why this deck seems to be the one most capable of just almost abusing it?
Yeah, so with Worship, whenever I go down less than 1 life, if I have a creature in play, my life will remain at 1. So that helps a lot with things that really can't get rid of a 4-cost enchantment that wants to just keep hitting me. So it helps out a lot against like Burn or what's it called, DS decks that don't have access to like, well, I guess Grixis is the only one right at the moment.
Yeah, and then they would have to like hard counter it on resolve.
Yeah,
exactly.
They typically struggle against enchantments.
Yeah. So decks that just want to beat me down and I have Worship out, it's really hard for them to win. So, and the reason why this deck is able to do it really well is because there's a lot of creatures here that are able to give me more creatures. So Drowner gives me 2 more Scions. Eldrazi Skyspawner gives me another Scion. And I have Displacer, which I could just keep blinking them and just keep making creatures.
Stay ahead with Worship's ability.
Yep.
And your creatures are usually like big, so like Worship Against Burn, they can only hit you for so much, but
Exactly.
they're not going to run into a wall of Thought-Knot Seers and Reality Smashers.
And if they want to get rid of a Smasher, again, they have to use 2 cards.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now let's move to the Stubborn Denial. Stubborn Denial is a great card.
Yep. Yeah, especially with my deck where I have 3 creatures that have 4 power, 5 power, and I can cast them really early. Stubborn Denial becomes a huge help in that.
And that's what makes that counterspell better than like a Spell Pierce and things like that, sort of, correct?
Yep.
Just because of the condition.
Yep, exactly. So that's really helpful, especially against like control decks. It's really helped me out. And then Storm, it's helped me out as well.
Sounds good.
Just decks that rely on non-creature spells, it's helped me out.
Sounds good. And then the following things we haven't covered are Kitchen Finks. I think we touched on them a little bit. And Grafdigger's Cage. Would you like to go through some of that stuff?
Yeah, so I used to run 1 Grafdiggers, but since the emergence of Storm again, I had to run 2, especially with Coco decks also now. There's just a lot of them these days, so I figured I'm going to run 2. And the good thing about it is because it's an artifact, I can find it off of Ancient Stirrings.
That's such a great,
Yeah.
generation. Now, you sit down. What are the decks you want to see, and which ones are the ones that you just like don't want to, like, you just try to avoid, let's say?
I want all fair decks. Just
Mid-range
fairs. Give me mid-range fair decks. I feel I can I just beat them, like I'll pace them with it. I'm able to get my creatures out faster than them. I can fly over them if I need to. I could get rid of their creatures with my EEs. It's just, I think this is the best fair deck right now. Okay. But I don't want to see is just combo decks. Decks that could beat me in turn 3, it's just, it's really hard to deal with.
So go over the combo decks in case people don't know.
Storm is really
popular right now.
Yeah, it's popular right now and terrifying. It's really hard to beat something that can beat me in turn 3 like that. The Counters Company is a little bit of hassle, and Living End can be quite a hassle as well. And because of that, I want to run Warping Well, something that Eldertron has at the moment that I don't. So I'm thinking about Warping Well over E at the moment because I don't see a lot of wide decks.
Okay. So before the video we started, we were actually having a conversation on Warping Well, which like I hope we can replicate here. So run us through on like the big decision that you're trying to do, because I feel like you're trying to make a very big decision right now.
Yeah.
Trying to move over to getting rid of the EE's main board, and going over the Warping Well.
Yeah.
We went over it and we understood the majority of it. I mean, we debated a little bit on the stuff. So for people out there who might not know like how powerful Warping Well is, like show us, like convince people out there on why it's better than EE.
Choosing a 50-cent card over like a $50, $60 card, basically in this case.
It
if
is,
you're on a budget
option.
But the main reason right now is just I haven't seen too many wide decks, and EE is perfect for wide decks because they'll put all their creatures out. I just cast 1 color with Sunburst, which I'm assuming they can see on the screen what it is, and just kill all their creatures off. But with combo decks, they kind of lean on a sorcery spell, or with the Counters Company, they lean on Devoted Druid. So with Warping Well, you can exile a creature whose power toughness is 1 or less. So you can get rid of their Devoted Druid, but not only just get rid of it, it's exile. So they can't bring it back with E-Wit.
Correct. And like some builds are running 4 to 3 E-Wits, which is like a big thing to like. E-Wit just helps that deck recover flawlessly.
Yeah, exactly.
So being able to exile is such a great option.
Yeah.
What are other like decks that it comes in that are great? Like you said, you don't.
So Living End, you can counter it. It's a sorcery spell. And with Storm, you can counter Passing Flames.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's able to kind of like slow the game down, so I can get my creatures out and beat them.
Now adding Warping Well to the main board, let's say. Well, what are the matchups like where Warping Well might punish you for trying to call the meta?
So elves, if they put elves out, that might be a bit of a hassle because it doesn't matter if you get rid of 1 creature, they'll be able to just put even more creatures later.
Which is where you would
want EE, exactly. I know I might not see a lot of it, but I do see 1 or 2 here and there. Is the new Allies deck, Allies, where they just have a bunch of allies, slivers, like any deck where they're just putting a lot of creatures or even just big creatures, it might not be as helpful. But again, consider like with the meta right now, I'm expecting more Counters Company, more Storm.
And it's not like you're getting rid of the E's completely.
Exactly,
correct?
they're going to be in the sideboard.
Correct.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, for people who opt to pick up this deck, right? If you're opting to adopt his Warping Wheel plan, also be very wary of Grixis control-based decks. Any control-based deck, there's going to be a lot more instant sorceries. Yes, you can hit a Snapcaster Mage if they're running Ancestral Visions. You can hit that, right? But just that is a case, right? Grixis control variants or just Grixis in general, a lot of instant sorceries that weaken the potential of Warping Wheel.
Yeah.
That's something to always reconsider. We've talked about this in the past. Why 3 as opposed to the 4 drowners?
It's a huge cost. Even with Eldrazi Temples, Nobles, and Birds, I feel Drowner is already a huge cost. I don't want to have 2 Drowners in my starting hand. If it's gonna take too long for me to get Drowners, it sucks having them, and you have to kind of mold. I want a nice curve, and I feel just having 3 Drowners, I will find one eventually, especially with Ancient Stirrings, and I want it more later in the game. It's very rare for you to have a turn 3 Drowner. It does happen, which is beautiful, but it's rare. So you want to expect more of a turn 5, turn 4 Drowner, and again, you don't want...
So it's just decrease the chances of opening hand having a Drowner.
Yep.
Now, somebody picking up the deck, picks it up, what's some advice you would consider giving this, like a new player coming into the modern scene, saying, hey, I like this deck, I want to try it out?
You honestly get a hang of it really fast. So like I said, I've only been playing it since December, and I just started, this was my first deck for Modern, so I just started Modern in December. So,
and you've been putting up good results with it?
Yeah, exactly. So
congratulations on that.
Thank you. I won 2 GPTs. I have probably a 60-40 win percentage with this deck. So once you actually like get the hang of it, it becomes really easy. And because your game plan is kind of focused on just attacking with your creatures, it becomes kind of like I don't know.
Aggro deck?
Kind of like an aggro deck, exactly. Yeah. So it's really, aggro decks are usually easy to get a hold or learn how to like play against or play with. So I think this is like a really good starting deck for most people, especially if they like big creatures.
One of the best things I love about this deck is that Eldrazi have been the boogeyman of God knows how many formats by now, and then you take a look at this deck and you're like, it's just a fair, interactive Magic deck, right? And keep in mind the most key word in there, interactive.
Yep.
That means you're not only just learning this deck, and this isn't to say like you have to know every deck in Modern by the back of your hand, right?
Correct.
But picking up this deck also means trying to get a decent understanding of your opponent's deck as well, right? A lot of the key interactions you'll have, displacing either their creature versus yours, the situations, right? What answers to pick up at what time. We're not saying that you have to have textbook encyclopedic knowledge of every deck in Modern.
Are there matchups where you feel like you have to be the defensive player?
I mean, it honestly depends on the board state that comes with. Usually I want to be the aggro player, but of course there's times where my opponent has bigger creatures, especially with Eldertron. If I see that they have smashes before I do, I try to, that's where Displacer comes like really helpful. You mentioned Displacer, I can displace Smasher. So it honestly just depends what the board state is. It's usually Abzan, Eldertron that are the ones I'm more defensive, depending if they're on the play and they put out their creatures first. Yeah.
And early on, throughout the video, you've also mentioned like Burn as a problematic matchup. Could you maybe give like a quick snippet as to why?
So with Burn, it's a tough matchup, especially game 1, mainly because they're just hitting me faster than I can hit them. So my goal for Burn is to get Thought-Knot out as soon as possible, because I can get rid of their Burn spells that way. And because it's a 4/4, it's hard for them to get rid of it as well.
So we didn't cover your lands all that much like before. Would you like to go through like the basics and the shocks you're currently running?
So so the basics, I run all 3 colors: Island, Plains, Forest.
Help
A lot
put it on
of
path.
yeah, a lot of them. Not only just path. There's also Ghost Quarter, especially with blue white right now with Crucible.
Okay.
But island, not a lot of decks have island, but because I have Drowner Hope, 4 Skyspawners, and I have Nissa, I feel like blue in there does help out
Okay.
at times. Plains and forest, again, self-explanatory. The shock lands, I only want 1 each, especially with a lot of decks that like burn that, like we've said before. I don't want to hit myself too much. Don't need a lot of them. I only run 4 fetches.
You want a nice diverse group basis because you have to worry about Ghost Quarters and of course Blood Moon, one of the boogeymen
Right.
of the format.
Yeah, exactly. With Blood Moon, especially, these have helped out a lot. There's a time where Affinity player put turn 1 Blood Moon, and I was still able to get there because I had my basics in hand.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So that about wraps everything up. I want to thank Jonathan Martinez and
Thanks for
Team
having me.
Ishkanat.
Yeah, thank you.
Shout out to you guys. Once again, Game Hub, we have Modern every Monday from 6:30 till 5 rounds usually, and it's about $5 as well. We also have Modern at Collector Legion for $5 at 6:30 as well. Come out and play with us. You'll meet Jonathan Martinez. He's a regular at all the shops. You'll get to experience this deck firsthand.